welcome to the channel. Today is my first ever zoo or museum review. Today it's going to be on a zoo. So what this is about is I visit a ton of zoos and museums. That's pretty much what I like to do on vacations, so I'm just going to tell you what I think about it and if you should go or if you shouldn't go. Today we're starting off with an excellent zoo. It's quite a beaut, you could say. It is the Australia Zoo, home of the Crocodile hunter. So if you were a animal kid like me, growing up, your hero was Steve Irwin. I remember being totally devastated when he passed away, and it was a dream to go to this zoo. And I finally got to go a couple years ago, right before the pandemic, so thank God. I went to Australia as part of the Society of Vertebrate Paleontology annual meeting. I was presenting a poster there. Of course, I did not spend most of my time at that meeting. I went all around the east coast of Australia, because why not? So the first thing I did when I got there, besides being jet lagged, was I woke up the next morning bright and early and got on a bus from Brisbane and got all the way to the Australia Zoo. So in these photos, you're probably gonna see my eyes being totally bloodshot. That's because I had gotten like no sleep and I was super excited to be in Australia. Another thing about these is I tend to go alone because I'll be at some meeting or something, so it's just by myself. So you're going to see a lot of selfies. So you're going to see my horrible short hair experience. Forgive that. Australia Zoo is on the east coast of Australia, just north of Brisbane. So it's in the Queensland province, I think they're called. It's like their states in Australia. So, and if I'm pronouncing anything wrong and you're Australian, I am so sorry. You guys say it way better than I do. This zoo opened in 1970 as the Beerwah, hopefully I'm saying that right, reptile park. It was owned by Steve Irwin's parents. It was mostly a rehab and small reptile zoo. And eventually it got bigger, the names changed, and eventually Steve Irwin turned it into the Australia Zoo. What's really cool is it's not only a zoo, it's also a rehabilitation center, and they actually have an animal hospital there that you actually get to visit. They do lots of, releases of animals they take care of there. It's a really special place, very cool. Decently sized, it's a good sized zoo. So you definitely need your walking shoes around it. Some of the paths are quite long, but there are places to sit, places to eat, places to cool off. They have a water park. They have a couple different eateries. It's a really cool thing. Of course, because it's the Australia Zoo, they have a lot of Steve Irwin memorabilia, just showcasing it as a tribute to his legacy. Just images and videos and stuff. What actually got me really emotional was they had a pair of shoes on display where they had a little crocodile bite in them. So that got me really sad because he was one of my heroes. So that was it for me when I saw that. The zoo has a lot of Australian animals, obviously, but it has animals from around the world. It was a nice African exhibit, lots of giraffes. They had a really cool meerkat exhibit. You could actually interact with most of these animals. They had a ton of different things to interact with. I did a dingo encounter because I had to pick an Australian animal, because why would I pick a giraffe if I could pick a dingo? It was really cool. You can't really take photos while you're in there, but it's okay because they give you a photographer that takes pictures of you. I was with another family since I was just by myself. You go in there with the animal, you follow the keeper's instructions, so you just sit down, let the animals come to you, you get to pet them, and they tell you about, the individual animals as well as just generic facts about them. It was so cool. They show you like training. It was a really great experience. The tour bus that I went with, while you did things by yourself, they included a koala encounter. So I also held a koala while I was at the Australia Zoo. There's a lot of interaction at this zoo. They have wildlife paths that you walk through that you can pet the kangaroos and take pictures with them. They have zookeepers walking around with reptiles that you can pet. There's even a couple zookeepers walking around with a baby tiger for some educational things. So it was just a really cool interactive zoo, lots to do there with animals. So yeah, for Australian animals, they had a lot of things that I hadn't even heard of. And then they also had what I was fascinated by because the little kids were like, oh, look at the turkeys. And I'm like, what turkeys? And they had these cute little birds that were just walking around the park. And I'm like, that looks nothing like a turkey to me. But those are really cool. I was super fascinated by all the natural things that Australian people get to see. I'm super jealous. You got a bunch of weird, cool stuff walking around. By far my favorite, though, was the Australian water dragons. They were everywhere. And they were like everywhere in Australia that I went for wildlife stuff. I loved them. I took so many pictures of them. I was obsessed. That actually led to me really wanting one. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of them in the United States that are captive bred. However, I managed to find someone who had a captive bred one, and she's healthy and wonderful, and one day I'll do a video on her. But yeah, dreams come true after I went to Australian Zoo and got obsessed with them. They also had a bunch of dinosaur exhibits that you can take pictures with, a bunch of huge dioramas, and a bunch of signs about them. So it was not only just a fun zoology trip, but it was a paleontology trip as well, which is probably good since I was supposed to be presenting about paleontology. So yeah, they had the normal stuff that Australia would have: kangaroos, wallabies, emus, cassowaries, wombats. And then they had, of course, a whole house of these snakes that will probably kill you in Australia, which was really cool. All these deadly things that you could see really up close and personal. A bunch of brown snakes, taipans, death adders. They had the inland taipan, or the fierce snake, which is the most toxic venom in the world. One bite can kill 100 men. So it was really cool to see that up close. They had other things that weren't venomous, like womas and stuff like that. So it was really neat. Of course, there was a crocodile show. The crocodile show also featured birds, so they first started off with birds. You know, they would fly into the audience, do some training, and they'd talk about cool Australian birds. There was a black cockatoo, which was really neat. And then they went into their crocodile program with a bunch of different crocs. They showed them some training. They had some where they jumped up out of the water to get food. Some of these keepers, man, they just go into the water with these huge crocs to try to lure them out, to show some training. And like, I would never, but like, it was so cool to see that they do that. It was very true to Steve Irwin's mentality about, you know, how we respect wildlife, but sometimes you gotta go some personal with it. So they had a nice walkthrough that you can do for the animal hospital there. So they had this glass up, but you can actually see into exam rooms, into the enclosures for rehabbed animals. While I was there, someone was feeding a flying fox or a bat with a little bottle. It was so cute. She actually held it up to the glass so I can see it because she was right there. Really cute. And then they had outside, they had reptile enclosures that were really natural. They got natural UVB from the sun. And what I found was super interesting was that they had bearded dragons out there, but they look nothing like our American bearded dragons. They were like black, like dark, and like they had several, and I'm like, whoa, is that like a natural bearded dragon looks like? Because we're so used to all of our morphs and our nice light tan beardies that, like, wow, these ones that are from Australia are super dark and super different than what we're used to. Of course, in their gift shop, they had a bunch of crocodile hunter stuff, so I stocked up because biggest fan. So I got this cool shirt that was just like his shirt, got a nice crikey shirt, got some crocodile earrings. Like, I went all out. I went crazy. But they also had local artists that you can buy stuff from. So right behind me I have my didgeridoo painted by an actual indigenous person of Australia, which is pretty neat. And then of course I have a boomerang. So do I recommend the Australia Zoo for you to visit? I 100% do. It is a wonderful zoo. It has great animals, great sitting, great eating. And of course, if you're a big Steve Irwin fan, it's like your mecca. So go see it. It'll make you sad, but it'll also make you super happy that his legacy is kind of living on through his family and then through all the keepers and the visitors. It was a really great experience. So I highly recommend the Australia Zoo. So yeah, if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more. I'm going to definitely go into all the different zoos and museums that I've ever been to because I've been to a lot of them. Thanks for joining. Oh my god! But I don't know where I was going with that. So yeah, that was all my notes. Oh no, there's more notes.